Yes, indeed, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the story behind the story, the 5th day of November 2012, yes. Doesn't it make you feel good, ladies and gentlemen, that tomorrow you can dress up and bundle up or whatever you want to do and go out and push a little button on a computerized disk and think you're doing good? Yeah, oh golly, ladies and gentlemen. No person is more hopelessly enslaved than he who falsely believes that he is free. That's a classic quotation from the philosopher Goethe, the German philosopher Goethe. And part and parcel of people falsely believing they are free is falsely believing that they have a democratic vote, that it's really honestly correct. Joseph Stalin said it best, and also I quote Lenin, because Lenin said the same thing. Vladimir Lenin and Joseph Stalin. Really, it doesn't matter what people vote. What matters is who counts the people's votes. Is America off track? Most definitely. Does America ever have a chance to be fixed? No, it does not have any chance, ladies and gentlemen, because people are so controlled in their mind by a controlled media that keeps feeding them bull, complete garbage, mesmerizing them to believe that they really have a vote as far as national elections are concerned. It's all a flat-out broken mess, folks. Take it to the bank. Take it, whatever you want to take it. Wednesday morning, you'll see the headlines. Ryan and Romney elected president and vice president. I mean, I don't care what you listen to on the controlled media, the democratic, controlled, liberal, lying media. The fix is in, folks. The die is cast. The die has been rolled. I mean, it's set in stone. You have complete behind the scenes movement in Washington D.C. for the new administration to be taken over. This is way beyond positive thinking, folks. This is absolutely set in stone. You have Barack Hussein Obama and Michelle planning their Hawaiian home and furnishings. It's just absolutely sickening how the people are kept in the dark about these basic things. The University of Colorado, ladies and gentlemen, have for the last, at least 3 decades, little known poll, call it a poll, call it whatever you want. They have accurately, almost scary. It's scary how close to the actual figures they come up. And it's just amazing. They picked the Electoral College way ahead of time. They've been 100% accurate in every election, really, since Nixon. I just think it's tied in again to Colorado Springs, the intelligence, the pure intelligence of the military, and what's really underground, the deep underground military bases underneath Denver International Airport, the Illuminati. These people know. You want to know what's going on in America? Just watch these unelected movers and shakers, and you'll know where to go, folks. You'll know where to hide. They've never missed, and they're picking Romney, Ryan in quite an amazing landslide. You see, folks, Barack Hussein Obama is going to win California. They're going to win the West Coast. They're going to win Oregon. They're going to win Washington. They're going to take a slim lead. They're going to win New Mexico. They're going to win Illinois and Chicago, which is, of course, is Barack's power base. They're going to win New York State, despite the devastation of the hurricane and the north. I mean, the word is now a freezing cold nor'easter is blowing in, right in time with the election day tomorrow. Isn't that just interesting? Wouldn't it be shocking if Romney, Ryan somehow were given the 29 electoral votes of New York State? It's possible. It's possible if so many people think, oh, well, you know, look what big government's done for us in New York City. They can't even get gasoline tankers in time there. People can't even, good heavens, they have porta potties under lock and key for the New York Marathon that were not given to the people in need. I mean, come on. Big government does not work. I think it'd be scary. It's going to be very scary. The liberal base, state of Washington is pretty much, I think Washington, Oregon, California, New Mexico, Illinois, New York, Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, and that's pretty much it, folks. Pennsylvania, 20 electoral votes in Pennsylvania. Do the math. It's pretty thin. Pretty doggone thin. The fix is in Florida. The fix is in Ohio. Florida's 29 electoral votes. The fix is in thanks to the Bush boys. Texas, solidly behind Romney, 38. I mean, this is the way it is, folks. This is already determined. Already determined. You'll see a landslide tomorrow night. It'll be shocking. Oh, this is shocking. Oh, this is shocking. Every poll, ladies and gentlemen, from an open poll that's not controlled by these Democrat liars, the Democrats, Gallup poll shows it's landslide to Romney. Landslide. The fix is in. And but it's got to appear. You know, it's got to appear to the people, to the sheep, to you people who have no clue. It's got to appear like it's democracy, not oligarchical appointments. So, you know, Barack's got to go through the motions. He's got to have his teleprompters up there spouting off what he has to spout and appear like he's running a good race, but it's over, folks. He knows it. Michelle knows it. Romney and Mitt and Ann Romney, they know. They know the appointment. And let me just tell you why, folks. The nail in Barack Obama's coffin was what happened in 2010 when you see Raum Emanuel and the other rabid Edomites, pro-Israel Edomites in his administration bailed and went back to Chicago. There was, you know, what happened in 2010 is this. This is you want to know what's going on in America, really look closely what's going on in this reprobate state called Israel. Dateline Jerusalem today. This is amazing. And an Israeli news channel reported last night, Sunday, that Prime Minister Benjamin Bibi Netanyahu and Defense Minister Ehud Barak ordered the Israeli military in 2010 to prepare for a full-scale attack on the Iranian nuclear program. But the report, this documentary, this news channel documentary, will show that this was blocked by concerns or whether the military could do so. They were blocked by a direct stand down order by Barack Obama and Leon Panetta. They told Israel they would not support an attack. Now, I've been reporting on this myself on this show. That's probably the best thing that Barack Hussein Obama could have ever have done. Not only for the sake of America, but the sake of this planet. Because there was that, without a doubt, that is a triggering event of World War III. There is no doubt about that in my mind personally. Now, that's the reality, folks. And again, Barack Hussein Obama is a red communist groomed for the position, groomed by the communist Edomite Jews of Bolshevik Russia. So don't take this as that I'm a fan of Obama. Of course I'm not. He's a fraud and a phony, but he did one thing that should, yes, he earned his Nobel Peace Prize, ladies and gentlemen. He earned his Peace Prize for his actions in 2010. And this is something that the mainstream media, of course, is not going to touch, not going to talk about. But you see, in 2010, the fix became in. It became a race by the rabid Zionist neocons that really truly control this planet, the synagogue of Satan, the ones that really are in power on this world stage. You see, Barack Hussein Obama broke his covenant with them. And so they searched for the one candidate that they knew it could count on, and in a very real sense, that is where Willard Mittens Romney shines. Who is his top advisor, again, for foreign policy? Is the dual Israeli citizen Dov Zakheim, the mastermind of September 11th. How much more do you need to know, people? So here we have this Israeli news channel documentary report. The report by investigative journalist Ilana Dayan came in the form of a preview for an hour-long documentary about Israel's decision-making process regarding Iran, which is scheduled to be broadcast in Israel tonight, Monday night. Dayan said on the news channel's evening newscast Sunday that Bibi Netanyahu, in a meeting with a small inner circle of top ministers, turned to Gabi Ashkenazi. What a name. Gabi Ashkenazi. Think he's an Ashkenazi Jew, folks? Turn to Gabi, or whatever, Gabi, G-A-B-I, Ashkenazi, the head of the Israeli Defense Forces at the time, and told him to, quote, set the systems for P+, a coded term meaning that an operation would start immediately. Ashkenazi and Meir Dagan, who was the head of the Mossad at the time, would later say that this was an attempt at them, quote, stealing a war, Diane reported, because in their view such an order required a decision of the full cabinet, not the smaller inner group in the meeting who were known as the Forum of Seven. So they were trying to steal it because they knew, you see, that the cabinet, they wouldn't sanction an attack on Iran without the full 100% support of the U.S. military. It would be suicidal for them. And Barack Hussein Obama said, no, we're going to give diplomacy a chance. Folks, that's the reality. Heaven help us. The Dov Zakheim now is again pushing the buttons and has control over the nation's nuclear arsenal. Heaven help this planet. And heaven help we the people. Oh my goodness, folks. You should see the incredible hate mail and the vicious, oh my goodness, the emails I received over the weekend. The violent, profane, rife with F-bomb expletives over my posts over the reality of Hurricane Sandy. Oh my goodness. You know, if if I had thought there was any form of justice, I'm sure these posts should be given to law enforcement. I have been threatened. I've been told. Somebody's going to take you out. How dare you? How dare you say anybody but God can control the weather? Folks, did you even read? I mean, really read the evidence? Did you really study the evidence? Of course, if somebody comes up there and just says such a thing, you're going to be mocked. Of course, you're going to be. It's part of your programming. You're going to mock this, and you're going to get angry that somebody would point a finger at Israel. But look at the evidence. Look at the evidence. Salt Lake Tribune, Monday, November 5th, today. We see in the editorial comments a reprint of the Los Angeles Times article on Thursday. And boy, you talk about a twist. Oh, was Hurricane Sandy an act of God or man? Oh, what a twist. What a sickening twist. Way to go, LA Times. Way to go, you Edomite controllers, the editors, and the people that just want people to believe one way. I mean, this is way, 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 way out of control. Act of God or man. It asks the question, is global warming to blame for Sandy, the quote, Frankenstorm? Frankenstorm. What an aptly named title. Remember Frankenstein? Around Halloween, we celebrate this insanity, this control of Satan, this high black Sabbath of Satanism. Frankenstorm. Man-made indeed. But global warming, it's man-made. Global warming is man-made because of our burning of carbon fuels. What a... I've had enough of this insanity. You talk about insane. And people buying into this garbage. It blows me away. Quote, pundits and politicians were arguing about that even before the massive storm struck the Atlantic coast. Now that it has moved on, after killing more than 100, flooding the New York subway system, ripping away chunks of New Jersey's coastline, and causing myriad other damage that will place Sandy among the most expensive natural disasters in all of U.S. history. It's an even more pressing question. After all, if the storm were an act of man rather than an act of God, we might be able to prevent such disasters from recurring. Folks, this is the salient point here. You have to go back and really look at what was reported in 1966, and I had this report sent to me from a fellow, and I was just, he's a fellow in the know in Washington D.C. in the Beltway, and he said, "Look at this." Boy, talk about the smoking gun, the most piece of damning evidence. 1960 and 6. If you haven't gone onto my blog and seen that update, you need to. Oh, you need to. You see, the whole premise for the Edomite influence in NASA. You see, this report is from the director of NASA, who just happens to be an Edomite Jew who says he is a Jew but not, but is a synagogue of Satan according to the book of Revelation. You see, it's laying out the premise for successes already achieved in the weather control arena. Again, NASA and soon they formed, of course, the National Aeronautics, NOAA, Oceanic and Atmospheric Association. They know these things, folks. I'm telling you, 1960 and 6. The whole premise for these millions, hundreds of millions of dollars of tax research going in, this channeling of unlimited streams of money, is the premise, as he explains. We know that we can save the Americas from devastating storms in the future. We know we can defuse lightning in the storms. We know we can stop lightning from causing massive forest fires and burning up our national forests. We know it's simple. We know with the right funding and the right money, we can flat out guide hurricanes away from the coasts of America. Strategic interest in America. And more importantly, we also know if we don't have this, just like the space race, the Russians are way ahead of us. We've got to do it for protection against the Cold War enemy, the Ruskies, the Soviets, the godless communists. This was all the rationale for this report. Again, it's mainly a plea for additional funding, massive amounts of money to be generated. This is 1966, folks. Do you really believe that nothing has happened since 1966 in this arena? As he lays out in the report, this is of the utmost security. Do you really believe that nothing came of this report in 1966? Do you really believe, ladies and gentlemen, that it happened to have a brain in your head? Do you really believe that there was no need for the United Nations Convention on Weather Modification in the 1970s and the signing of the treaties in 77 and 78? You know, the advances, for instance, since 1966 internationally were so massive. The breakthroughs were so massive that it became globally vital to have a convention to control the use of this. Just probably even more important, or at least as important, as stopping the insane proliferation of nuclear weapons. In stark absence the nation that refused to sign an agreement. Israel, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, that speaks volumes. Because, you see, it's Jewish, Israeli people that dominated the research in this arena. I mean, come on. If it quacks like a duck, if it has a web feed and waddles around and acts like Aflac, you better call it a duck. And so if it upsets you folks and you want to threaten me, if you want to send me personal poison emails, that's your right. Why don't you turn your anger on the people that's doing this to you, not to the people that report it? Oh, I'm not crazy, ladies and gentlemen. Personal attacks. PhD, piled higher and deeper. You're just the attacks, again, on me. My credibility, my education. Yeah, and what really bites me is people are calling for my commitment to an insane asylum. I mean, yeah. Let's not debate the facts. Let's not look at the true history. Let's just attack the messenger, shall we? Let's call him a lunatic and a fool and lock him away. We don't have to listen to more of this dribble. Yeah. Los Angeles Times editorial continue. Unfortunately, though, there's no easy answer. Climate change is measured in terms of observed changes in temperatures and weather patterns across broad swaths of territory over long periods of time. Scientists are reluctant to attribute any single weather event to man-made global warming. Why? Because this man-made global warming is very much a part of the weather modification by the Rothschilds. Holy mackerel. And then they have their paid their paid North Carolina Illuminati spokesman, Al Gore, up there running interference for him. And you wonder why people are confused. Oh, goodness, folks. Oh, my goodness. Yeah, time to take a break. We'll come back after these messages. Please stay tuned. And we're back, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the story behind the story. Continuing on this incredible Los Angeles Times op-ed piece. Oh, my heavens. Oh, my stars. Oh. So the question is asked in this editorial comment, so how come such experts as Al Gore are telling us that Sandy was, quote, strengthened by the climate crisis? Notice this, it's a crisis. They have to have crisis management. Global warming is a crisis, so this is oh, my stars. In part, it's because Sandy involved a highly unusual confluence of weather events, some of which may have resulted from a widely documented rise in global ocean and surface temperatures. Waters in the mid-Atlantic, for example, are unseasonably warm, which may have made the storm stronger. It might have headed harmlessly out to sea if not for a rare blocking pattern caused by a high-pressure system near Greenland, which may have arisen because Arctic temperatures are going up. It is so blessed easy to see how this is manipulated. You just flat out have a global system run by computer. You have the upper atmosphere circulating these particulate matters, which, again, cause or can be hit with a microwave, just like much the same way that your picture your microwave oven, ladies and gentlemen, boiling water. How long does it take to boil water in your microwave versus your stovetop? You see, folks, when you radiate through, again, you've got barium, you've got aluminum particulates up in the upper atmosphere thanks to your chemtrail cloud seeding programs. It's very, very easy for a computerized model to direct, again, through satellites that are placed for that very purpose, to create the superstorm. That's the entire text of the plan outlined in the 1966 report. How they can manipulate the weather to protect American coastlines, to protect American assets. The bottom line is, folks, we should never have another hurricane reach landfall. They should be just out there in the swirling around. Yeah, hurricanes are an act of nature. They've always been that way. That's part of Mother Nature, part of God's ecosystem. But you see, with the technology to protect ourselves, we should never, ever have a massive hurricane do any damage on our coastlines. If it does, you can bet your bottom dollar it was designed by man to do so for a very sinister reason. Oh, please. Global warming, the polar ice, these things are all by design, folks. Why do you think Haiti was rocked with that earthquake? Why? Well, earthquakes are all part of this. You just, again, you concentrate the beams into certain areas, and it'll cause the shifting. Again, by computer model. America has seismograph stations and pivot points on all fault lines across this continent. All the plates, moving plates, can be monitored, and they're run by a computer. Again, underground in Colorado Springs, Colorado. Every little movement is run into a massive computer. There is no reason for massive earthquakes anymore unless it's ordered and made to happen either through vengeance or for some, again, geopolitical reason. The Haiti Committee of the Third World Nations and the Copenhagen Global Warming Summit of 2010 walked out. And they were the Edomite power brokers were so upset because it threw a monkey wrench in their whole global carbon credit currency of the New World Order. They flat out told Haiti they would destroy their nation, and they did. Through this massive earthquake. People ask me that have legitimately responded with questions. What's the purpose? What's the purpose of this massive hurricane to hit New York? Folks, I don't claim to know the reasons why they did. I just claim to know that they did it. They did it and they controlled it. They made it happen. That's part of a grand jury indictment, is to ask these suspects why they did it. I can suspect a number of reasons. Could it be possible that Donald Trump, who was, busy exploring, getting the goods on the whole Obama scam, isn't it just interesting that much of his development and his money base is in this region, and I don't know how well insured he is, but come on, this has been a massive financial hit to Donald Trump. New Jersey, the Jersey Islands, the Jersey Shores. Donald Trump is big there. Was. He's gone now. I don't know the whole reasons why. I just know the technology exists, folks. The technology to create global warming is all part of a very, 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 very satanic world agenda. I, for one, have had enough. It's bad enough that they come and destroy the Twin Towers and Building 7 and have the majority of people in this country believe it was done by some shadowy guy named Bin Laden. The power of their persuasion through their lying manipulation is just beyond belief, honestly. And the perpetrator of this, a guy named Dov Zakheim, is sitting there directing Willard Mittens Romney. Do you really think for 1 minute that this is not a selection, not an election? An appointment? There's much, much more behind the story. Much, much more. Let me just share with you again. Well, wow, what can I say? What can I say? The website Ancestry.com, clear back on October 16th, had this little ditty, this little post on Willard Mittens Romney. You won't believe who Romney's related to. Ancestry.com. How many commanders-in-chief can you get in one family tree, they ask. When it's former Massachusetts Governor Mitt Romney's family tree, the answer is 6. 6 presidents, 6 commanders-in-chief. Romney's family tree connects him to Franklin Delano Roosevelt, Calvin Coolidge, Franklin Pierce, Herbert Hoover, and both George H.W. and, of course, George W. Bush. And I quote, Romney is connected to Presidents George W. Bush, George Herbert Walker Bush, and Franklin D. Roosevelt through a woman named Anne Marbury Hutchinson. Anne Marbury Hutchinson, a key figure in the development of religious freedom in America. What? An early settler of Rhode Island and New York. That's, oh my goodness, that's a huge understatement. Anne Marbury Hutchinson, ladies and gentlemen, is a key figure, not as much in religious freedom, but in American witchcraft and paganism. Yeah, I remember, I don't know if it's still the same way today, but quite a few years ago when I was back east, I was able to go into I walked the campus of Harvard in Cambridge, Massachusetts. I walked, and I thought it was interesting to go into Salem, Massachusetts. Had a few days. I was actually centered in Vermont and New Hampshire, but I went up and just visited the area, walked in, saw Salem, Massachusetts main sites. Salem, Massachusetts is amazing. It's witchcraft central, folks. The police cars of Salem, Massachusetts have a witch riding a broomstick along the moon. That's how. I mean, even the police cars have witchcraft symbols on them. At least they used to back when I was back there in the early 90s. I don't know if they still do. The Museum of Witchcraft, it commemorates the terrible atrocities of the religious extremism of the witch hunts, the Salem witch trials, the burning and terrible treatment of these poor innocent little women, these women who claim to be so. Just studying nature. Just doesn't matter that we have a group of 13 that go out there and prounce around in the woods naked. It don't matter. It don't matter. It's religious freedom. There was a display there. I believe it's still there in the Salem, Massachusetts Museum of Witchcraft. Their patron goddess, if you want to call it that, I call it that. There's a big wax, like the wax museum, a figure of wax honoring Anne Marbury Hutchinson. You see, Anne Hutchinson, yeah, the feminazis, the witchcraft practitioners, the Illuminati segment of the feminines, they honor Anne Hutchinson as his icon, the patron saint of their movement. So back in 2002, 2003, I was taking some friends into Temple Square in downtown Salt Lake City. They wanted to go into the genealogical library there, just to go in. It's right, just directly south of the Mormon-owned Museum of History, of Mormon History. So just south of that here is this genealogical library, and as you walk in the door, there's a full wall with pictures. The wall, I have this on electronic pictures, folks. I have it on a PowerPoint presentation. The wall is the descendants of Anne Hutchinson. This is the genealogical library of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. The descendants of Anne Hutchinson. And key to this whole display, this genealogical display, is Willard Mittens Romney. This is 2003. I thought it was odd that who the heck is Willard Mittens Romney? Oh, he saved the Olympic Games. Oh, woo, he came in and saved the 2002 Olympic Games, the Winter Olympics. But why is a whole wall pointing out that he is such a direct descendant, a powerful descendant of Anne Marbury Hutchinson? And more importantly, who the heck is Anne Hutchinson? Why does that even matter? Who is she? Wow, did that begin a research stream for me? What an eye-popping, eye-opening thing. Anne Hutchinson of religious freedom. What I was able to pull up is the archives history of the early Massachusetts community there, and you see, Anne Hutchinson had some very interesting nocturnal meetings. Let's put it that way. She had a select group of women that she was very close to. One woman in particular had a problem. Her bosom friend, this woman, I forget her name, became pregnant. The problem was her husband was on a ship's voyage when the pregnancy began. And so the religious leaders of the community there said, oh my goodness, how did this happen? Who is the guilty party? You see how it goes, folks? Well, Anne Marbury Hutchinson was also a very respected midwife. She was there at the births. When her bosom friend, that was part of her 13 inner group of coven, I suspect, came time for her to give birth, something very strange happened. The baby was stillborn, and according to the official history of the Massachusetts colony, Anne Hutchinson refused to show the fetus of the baby. According to the law at the time, it was to be given to the church officials for a Christian burial. No, she took the fetus and buried it out in the woods somewhere. They used dogs to trace it down, and long story short, they exhumed this fetus, this child. And a clear description of it was given in the records. We're talking about scaly with horns like a thistleback, it said, exactly, and give a full description, claws. Ladies and gentlemen, it was a reptilian, demonic baby of some sort. That is in the official record. And this is the bloodline that Willard Romney claims it's important that he's related to? Oh, fact is stranger than fiction, folks. We'll come back after these messages with America in Jeopardy. Talk about this more in depth. Thanks for listening. Stay tuned. And we're back, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back, indeed, to the story behind the story. This is, I don't want to just even walk on this lunatic fringe area because, where do you lose your audience on this one? All I know is this, folks. Back when I was doing radio and the story behind the story live radio in the 90s, I had some incredible experiences. And I'm talking about interviewing people that declared that they were part of a satanic ritual abuse coven of 13. Now, this goes again to credibility, points to credibility. And I'm just telling you, folks, this is a real story. I know it sounds completely out there. Presiding LDS Bishop, Counselor Glenn Pace, in his memo it was released to the media in the early 90s. One of the things that he declared in his interviews with 60 or 70 individuals is that there's some of these claims are so bizarre and so shocking that it does indeed strain credibility. What he's referring to there, I know what he's referring to. When you have 4 or 5, in my case, I had 7 or 8 different individuals who declared that at the most incredible point of a ritual that they shockingly saw what they thought was a human being shapeshift into a lizard. Now, I'm just saying this is what they're reporting. And yeah, presiding Bishop Glenn Pace, this is bizarre. This really strains the credibility factors. Yeah. I know. You know, David Icke. Oh my goodness. The biggest secret. He says, this really puts me out on a limb. I mean, I'm going to believe this stuff. You know, it was amazing. When I hear this from 6 or 7 other people, all independent of each other, they don't know each other. They don't have time to collaborate and to make their stories match. I got to tell you, when I heard it from people that, as far as I could tell, were not in any way able to know each other. And then I document this in my interviews, and then I hear David Icke in his book, The Biggest Secret. Oh my goodness. What are you supposed to think? Well, America in Jeopardy. Let's give you an American Jeopardy quiz of our history. In the Museum of Witchcraft, she is a central figure as the founding principle of religious freedom. Religious freedom has become a symbol of this icon. Yeah, that's the answer. The question is, who is Anne Marbury Hutchinson? Who is Anne Hutchinson? Now, I don't have the exact quote from right in front of me right now. I did document it in my PowerPoint presentation. I call it Mitt Romney the Demagogue. I put this together in 2007, 2008, primarily because of what I discovered in my research on Anne Hutchinson. Oh yeah, the physical description of this young corpse. It's just stunning. I mean, you're talking about. I mean, it looked like a fetus of a dragon. Description. I can't say it any better than that. And the question then became, to my mind, what the heck was going on here? This is in the Massachusetts State Historical Archives. Now let me be clear. Anne Hutchinson did not give birth to this baby. She was the midwife. But she sure tried to cover it up and to bury the evidence. Because she did this, according to the historical archives, she was cast away. She was exiled from the Massachusetts Bay Colony, the Massachusetts region. And she was told not to come back on fear of death. But she came back a number of times and, thumbed her nose. For whatever reason, the powers that be in Massachusetts, they should have hung her or burned her at the stake, whatever they do. Because she was under death penalty if she ever came back, and she came back a number of times. But whatever, they just kept exiling her. What can I say, folks? That's history. I think it also is quite interesting that Joseph Smith, the founder of Mormonism, his firstborn child when he was young newlywed to his wife Emma, was a severely, very, very strange, deformed fetus. He was staying at the home of Emma's family. Emma Hale was her name. There in Pennsylvania, Harmony, Pennsylvania. And she became impregnated by Joseph. And this is quite an interesting part of the early story, early life history of Joseph Smith, the founder of Mormonism. It's not a myth. It's all part of factual history, folks. The charlatan Joe Smith was, I shouldn't say charlatan, the demonically possessed Joe Smith is a better description. You see, was very quietly and covertly at the time translating these golden plates. And Emma, his wife, was the chief scribe. Emma did some of the translation, and a guy named Martin Harris from upstate New York was also employed as his scribe. He would put his seer stone in a darkened hat, and the text would magically appear, so he said, while the golden plates remained safely hidden in a box in the woods. I kid you not, folks. Magically able to translate them while they're buried in the woods. So Joseph would tell his little contact, he would brag about what he was doing, and there was over 100 pages of manuscripts at one time, and people were asking, when can we see these magical gold plates? When can we see it? Well, I'll inquire of the Lord and find out. And the revelation that he got through his peepstone was that his son, he says, my child, Emma was heavy with child. My son will be great, and he'll be the first human besides me allowed to see the plates, and then after he sees them, then they can be displayed publicly, these magic golden plates. It's a fact, folks. It's a fact. All this time, they're basically homeless. They're dependent on the support of the Hale family. And right at this time, here comes Martin Harris back. This is all being done in the spring of the year. And Martin Harris, his wife, Lucy Harris, I believe her name was Lucy, she's back there in upstate New York in Canandaigua County, and pretty upset because Martin, the man of the family, is off with this guy Joe Smith translating these golden plates, being a scribe for him. While nothing is being planted, this is critical time. This is the months where you got to plant your crops. You got to take care of this farm, Marty. Boy, you got to come in and take care of this farm. You're off gallivanting off there in Harmony, Pennsylvania. And so Martin came back to take care of business, to make sure the crops were planted, to make sure that his hired help was doing the job right, and more importantly, to try and to calm down his concerned wife. And I think she's every right to be concerned, frankly. Well, I'm sure it's the conversation when something like this, folks. Oh, dear wife, Martin says, I've been in the presence of greatness. I'm convinced that Joe Smith is a prophet. I believe he's a holy man. I believe he can talk with unseen angels. I believe he's doing something wonderful here, and I believe that we can give this work to the world and, yes, be profited by it, make money with it. Because make no mistake, this was all originally a money-making venture to become wealthy. Well, I submit that Martin Harris's good wife was saying, well, Martin, I think personally, I think it's crazy. I think it's lunacy. You've got one of the biggest, we have one of the finest, biggest, most lucrative farms in all of this upstate New York region. And here, you're giving this up to go chase after this. But I have enough respect for you as a man and my husband to give you benefit of the doubt. But why not test this guy, Joe Smith? Bring me back. So I want to be supportive of you, but I don't know what you're talking about. Let me read these 120, 119 pages, 120 pages, and let me decide for myself. So, packed up the horse and the whatever, went back to Harmony, Pennsylvania, went down, it was a couple day, 2 or 3 day trip. Hey, Joe, I got money, I got finances, I got abilities, but before I go on anymore, I got to convince my wife. I have to convince Mrs. Harris. So please, can I take this manuscript, this first edition, this 119 or so pages? Let my wife see it? After all, it's my handwriting. I wrote it out. I got to share it with her. I want to take it. Do you see the situation here? This is in the book, the sacred book of the Doctrine and Covenants of the Mormons, section 3. This time of year, it's July of 1828. The crops are in, the plantings and the crops are starting to grow. It's July of 1828, middle of the summer. So Joseph Smith allows Martin Harris to take these, 116 pages of manuscript, taking them back to upstate New York. Now, get this, folks. During this time frame in July, Joseph Smith has a real problem. He gets word that 116 pages is lost. He has a real problem. You see, Mrs. Harris said, well, okay, if he's claiming to translate this to the gift and power of God, which was the whole thing that Martin told her, it was all a translation, well, then I'll just, let's see if this is lost. If she supposedly burned it all in the fireplace. But Martin Harris wasn't too sure. He knew that his wife was a shrewd woman. Maybe she didn't burn it at all. Maybe she just made it appear like it was burned, and she hid it away. Now I'll go back and retranslate it, redo it, you see, and we'll compare. If it's close to the same translation, then okay, I'm a believer. You see. But if it's markedly different, clearly he's just a fraud. Now this is the dilemma that young Joseph Smith was faced with the report back. Martin came back to Harmony and said, Joe, my gosh, here's the problem. Oh, my heavens, oh, my stars. And the other problem that Joseph Smith had is his son, the son that he was looking forward to, that had been prophetically declared to be a special being to withhold these gold plates, to behold the gold plates. Guess what? He's stillborn, and badly, grotesquely deformed. Just like Anne Marbury Hutchinson's good friend's baby was. It's a fact, folks. It's exactly true story, not anything mythological or lying about that story. Absolutely an integral part of early Mormon history. The LDS Church has it as the history of the church documents. Now, the problem with lying and making up stories is you better make sure that all the details come together. You see, at this time, Joseph was so despondent, depressed. Yes, I'd say, well, what's going on? Not only did he lose his son, but Emma, his wife, had lost a lot of blood and was in a coma. She was comatose. They weren't sure if she was even going to live or not. So he has this grand poobah of this, these golden plates being translated, yada yada yada. 116 pages has disappeared. It's maybe destroyed. And Martin Harrison said, no problem, let's just go retranslate them. I'll just be the scribe. You retranslate them, and we'll see how they mesh. And then, don't bother me right now. Martin, my wife may not live. My son is badly deformed. And see, back at that time, that was a judgment of God. If your son was born, it was like a cursing. Fact. Joseph Smith Jr. came to Emma's father on bended knee, begging his forgiveness for what he was doing. For hopefully they could make amends and say, that somehow the divine intervention would save the life of Emma, his wife. And the fact is, folks, he came to one of the Hale cousins, who was a Methodist minister at the time, begged his forgiveness. In fact, he joined with the Methodists. He joined and was part of the Methodist congregation for a month or two in 1828. Think about the timing here, folks. He had repented fully. He says, he had to come to Jesus meeting. He became affiliated with the Methodist congregation there in Harmony, Pennsylvania. Now here's the tragedy. When he began showing up to their meetings and going to church, and Emma was back and mending her health, and would accompany him, pale and weakened, but still, she was past the trouble. She was out of her comatose state. She was doing better. And the busybodies of the local Methodists, the do-gooders, the people that you see, this is a clique. We're righteous Christians. There's no room for us for sinners. There's no room in the inn. This is a fact, folks. They came as a whole congregation to the minister, to the pastor, and said, we don't want this charlatan. We don't want this conjurer. We don't want this scryer, this magician in our church. And the elders there took a vote and basically excommunicated Joseph Smith Jr. from the Methodist congregation because of his prior actions, because of his dark deeds. Wait a minute. The Bible says we are all sinners. We all come short of the glory of God. And when somebody turns to Christ in pure repentance and wants to find the right path, what a tragedy it is to look down your nose at him and say, you don't belong with us. No, I don't know the full story. Maybe Joseph wasn't fully repentant. Maybe he was trying to tell about his special gifts. I don't know the inside story, what caused the Methodist sect there to turn against him and excommunicate him, but that's what they did. And Joseph Smith then went fully back into translating the Book of Mormon. But now you see the 116 pages. No, that was a mistake. I wasn't supposed to be translating that portion of the gold plates. It was the Book of Lehi. No, I have to translate the more correct religious part of the Book of Nephi. This is all in section 3 of the Mormons' Doctrine and Covenants. Oh my goodness. And just 18 months later, folks, on April 6th of 1830, the LDS Mormon Church is born in Fayette, New York, with 6 original members on April 6th. 66666666666. I wonder what would happen if the people of Harmony, the Harmony Methodist Church, had overlooked Joseph and given him love and said, you know, we don't want you to, but come to Christ. Let's study the Bible together and be one with Christ. I realized that he was suffering from a multiple personality disorder. He was an ill person. He had suffered mental anguish at age 6.5 to age 8. During those 18 months, from 6.5 to age 8, he had absolute physical trauma and torture that, man, it's just hard to imagine. As his bone was of his periosteum, his shin, was extracted without anesthesia and in 2 4-hour-long operations, bloody operations. The only way he could possibly have survived that, the incredible physical pain and torture that entailed, the only way he could possibly have endured that is to learn to dissociate, become a basically what's called in today's psychiatric journals a dissociative identity disorder, DID, also known as multiple personality disorder. Yeah, Joseph had problems. He was MPD, classic MPD, but he still needs help, needs love, needs understanding, not to be ostracized and turned away. What would have happened if the people of that church had said, we love you anyway with all your infirmities and frailties, Joseph. Please don't go scrying. Please don't do this anymore. Look what the scriptures have to say about looking through a glass and seeking treasures. Can you please become a part of our congregation? There would never be a Mormon church today. There would not be a Willard Mittens Romney with the Melchizedek priesthood of Satan now becoming the global leader. You see how the actions of people can affect events of history? That's amazing, amazing part of the story, folks. You look in the clinical psychiatric manuals under multiple personality disorder, MPD, and dissociative identity disorder, you see it's outlined as to what happens and to form that. There's trauma as a young person and a young 6.5 years to 8 years of age. There's typically abandonment issues where the parents basically send them off to be alone. That's exactly what happened in Joseph Smith's early life. After his infection into his leg, he was sent to recuperate away from the family for 6 months in Salem, Massachusetts, ladies and gentlemen, at the farm of his Uncle Jesse in Salem, Massachusetts. Please, we'll have to take a break. We'll come back with more after these messages. Please stay tuned. Ladies and gentlemen, oh yes indeed. You know, where do you draw the line, and where is the line to cross in this whole story of, this so-called Dracos, dragons, reptilians? Folks, the bottom line is simply this. There are individuals on this planet who unabashedly claim that they have had contacts with shape-shifting reptilians, period. And I don't mean to say that they're crazy just because I haven't experienced that myself personally. I just try and disseminate the information, try and figure out which is disinformation, which is flat-out lies, and let you decide for yourself. That's all that I can do as an honest reporter. To censor such stories is like saying, well, again, it's prejudgment, it's subjectivity. Now, what is the Bible? We're talking, the whole story of creation talks about the serpent, the reptile that tempted Adam and Eve and was cursed by God, cursed to be separated from them, never have really no more intimate contact, but only through dark rituals and dark rites can they have contact. To deny, and I submit to deny the story of these interdimensional demonic beings of reptiles is to basically deny the book of Exodus, to deny that the reptile, the serpent, you see, has no veracity. And might as well throw the whole Bible out then, see? Because Jesus of Nazareth in the New Testament, he used some very interesting vernacular when he described the scribes and the Pharisees. He didn't call them dirty rats, you dirty rat. He called them hypocrites, did he not? He called them serpents. He called them a generation of vipers. In the original Greek text, that's a very interesting declaration. A generation of vipers, descendants of the serpent. Descendants of the reptilians. Now, folks, all through the Middle Ages, all through even pre-Christian era, all you have to really do is look at archaeological excavations and see that, oh my goodness, you see some interesting artwork, some sculptures, some friezes on temple walls. Yeah, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, you go and visit exhibits. There's a ancient Greek temple. The seat, the throne of Satan, as it was described. Adolf Hitler, the Edomite, was deeply involved in this in the 1930s, later 1930s, bringing this actual excavated throne of Satan back to Berlin. Huh. Isn't it interesting that the Edomite Jews of the Muscovites, of the Bolsheviks, they took that throne of Satan back to Moscow when Berlin fell. Look at the carvings, the artwork on that throne of Satan. You see men merging with lizards and dragons and snakes. Think that's just a coincidence, folks? Do you think that could maybe be the biggest secret of all? and really what the agenda of Satanism is and the synagogue of Satan. Do you think the master, our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, was just using slang and describing these descendants of their father, the devil? The devil being literally a reptilian being in direct opposition with the Creator? I was stunned when I was trying to make sense of all this story. When again, my initial radio show, The Story Behind the Story, I believe was the inspiration for a guy out in Pahrump, Nevada, who I met briefly at a UFO convention there when I was exploring Area 51. Pahrump is right on the outskirts there. This gentleman would listen in to my broadcast, The Story Behind the Story, which was rebroadcast. It was taped on live on Thursday afternoons, but rebroadcast numerous times in the wee early morning hours. This guy's name was Art Bell, ladies and gentlemen, living in Pahrump, Nevada. And I'm positive that he got the inspiration for coast-to-coast radio from The Story Behind the Story broadcast. We preceded Art Bell's Coast to Coast by at least 3 years. Oh, you can see, well, this Story Behind the Story is getting nominated for Peabody Awards. It's giving people an alternative view of things that are just flat out hidden from mainstream radio and television and newspapers. Art Bell interviewed a woman. I'm not exactly sure of the dates of this broadcast. I remember it was stunning because I had a listener to Art Bell tape it and send me a copy of it, asking for my comments on it. This woman's name, I believe, was Pamela Stonebrook. It was interviewed by Art Bell, if my memory is correct. I think it was sometime in the 90s, maybe 96 or 97, when she went on a number of interviews, at least 2 with Art Bell on Coast to Coast. I remember listening to the tape, and I said, my goodness, either this woman is flat out psychotically crazy or she's demonically possessed. Either way, she's not Christian. Either way, she's totally stumbling around in New Age mumbo-jumbo. That's, again, maybe a little bit too judgmental, but the whole thing she was declaring on this Art Bell show, as I remember correctly, was her experiences with a reptilian lover, physically loving her in the biblical way. I remember this conversation with Art Bell because, you see, Art Bell said, now, it's late night, right? The kiddies are gone to bed. Let's be very specific. What do you mean? You have physical intercourse with this being? And she said, yes, we do. She described it, and let's be very blunt here. She says, the sexual excitement and the physical orgasm, she said, created by this intercourse was beyond anything earthly. That it absolutely lasted for hours, not just mere minutes. And Art Bell got into the very heart of the matter with her. Says, okay, so you say it's all physical. Do you know, why is it so powerful for you? And she said, well, it's not just a physical level, it's a deeply spiritual level. And Art Bell asked her the question, as I remember the interview. Well, if it's a physical state, not just, in your emotional or your imaginative state do you actually exchange body fluids? In other words, does he inseminate you, and does he have sperm? And she said in affirmative, yes, indeed. Just like any man that's normal and healthy. And I'll never forget this part of the interview. Art Bill says, do you have any birth control procedures in place? Do you worry about getting impregnated by this baby? And I remember her response was basically along these lines: it'd be a great honor to be impregnated and to carry a child of this being, bring it into this world. Wait a minute. I submit, folks, this is exactly what is happening in demonology. It's exactly what King James I laid out in his book, Demonology. He laid this all out in his book. He said these beings are very real. They're intermediaries into this world are women who are flat out, best way to describe it, they're hypnotized by it. They are seeking after the power and wisdom that these demons bring. King James said we've got to understand that this is going on in the United Kingdom. It's going on in a very powerful way, and if we ever hope to bring the true light of Christ into the United Kingdom, we better eliminate this practice, this demonology. These women having and seeking sexual intercourse with these demonic beings. I mean, I can't say it any plainer than that, folks. If you think this is all just a joke, you haven't read King James I of Scotland, the guy who brought us the King James version of the Bible, his incredible document of demonology. The people that left the United Kingdom during this demonic purge, folks, and I know this is controversial because you've been so brainwashed. The people that left, that sought religious freedom in America, are these people that were involved in this demonology. Yes, the Ann Hutchinsons of the world, folks. They come to America for religious freedom. Their old-time religion, their practice was persecuted by King James and his knights. Maybe there was a reason why. Maybe they were in league with the reptilian demon we call Satan, who appears. You talk about a shapeshifter. He appears like whatever he wants to appear as. The New Testament tells us he will appear even as an angel of light. You hear that, Joseph Smith? Mormons? Bringing to you a deceptive, an alternative, false religion. No wonder we're so confused. No wonder this world is such and such a mess. We've lost the anchor. We've lost our anchor, and we're adrift, not even knowing where the sun comes up in the morning, because we don't even know which way east is. We're lost in a fog, and we've lost our anchor. People like Pamela Stonebrook have quite a following. She goes around the country, I understand, teaching women a la witchcraft practitioners and covens how to conjure up their very own reptilian lover. Find yourself. Find your soul. Go to past life regressions. By finding your demon lover, he can help you find yourself, find out who you really are, find out how many lives you've lived in your regression. He'll teach you all that, and he'll give you the best sex in the universe. Folks, this is right out of Hollywood. Pamela Stonebrook's address is out of Hollywood, California. Hollywood. Run by the Edomite Jews bringing these movies. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. What can I say? Again, UFO, the UFO community, this abductions, these stories, folks, it's all demonic entities. Whether it's a reptilian, whether it's a gray, these are demons, folks, and they cannot stay in the presence of anybody that has Christ in their heart. For they can't even abide the name Jesus Christ. They are gone. These entities have been around since the very beginning. Just look at on Notre Dame Cathedral, the gargoyles, the Mothmen. These dark entities have been plaguing mankind since the very days of Jesus Christ. It is these demons that are the backbone of the synagogue of Satan. That's who these people worship, folks. Now, I'm not saying all Jews are satanic. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying that there is a very, very important controlling subset that are giving the whole barrel of apples a very rotten stench. I'm not saying all Mormons are bad, evil people. But I am telling you that your founders, Joseph Smith and Brigham Young, were demonic worshipers, folks. They worshiped the demon Satan. And you'd better come to that conclusion and come to Jesus Christ, the true Jesus Christ of the very, very divine New Testament. That's all you need. If you have a perfect gospel, you have the gospel of Jesus Christ. Why do you need the gospel of Joe Smith? Why do you need another testament, a book channeled from a darkened stone in a bloody hat? Come on, people. Why do you need a new temple that's celestial masonry, a Masonic temple, worshiping the God of the East? Don't you realize, good Mormon people, that when you go into the temple, the veil is always positioned to the east, that you go through the Lord of the East as the person you're worshiping. The Lord of the East is the illuminated son of Lucifer, Satan. Don't you understand that's a satanic ritual? Oh. And people think, good Mormon people, I know you're good people. The Salt Lake Tribune, Saturday, the religious writer, I think she's done a pretty good job for the most part, but she comes out. Her name is Peggy Fletcher Stack. Her article in Saturday's Faith edition of the Salt Lake Tribune, 12 myths about Mormons. Since when, Stack, did you become an apologist? As Americans cast their ballots and the clock ticks toward midnight in Mitt Romney's presidential quest, this much is clear. Americans don't know much about the candidate's LDS faith when this so-called Mormon moment began. Oh my goodness. She writes, many views of the religion are still skewed, exaggerated, or flat out wrong. Here are 12 persistent myths, she writes. Myths about Mormonism. Number 1 on her list, Mormons practice polygamy. That's just a big myth, she said. Now, words are amazing how you spin it. No, the mainstream Mormon church does not openly practice polygamy, but they do indeed practice spiritual wifism, spiritual polygamy, which is infinitely worse. She writes this, The LDS Church officially gave up polygamy in 1890. Oh, really? Mm-hmm. She says, number one, Mormons practice polygamy, but then in her explanation, she says, even so, Mormon scriptures, Doctrine and Covenants, section 132, describe and defend the practice and remain part of the mainline LDS canon of scriptures. And she says this, plus, quote, men can be sealed or married for eternity, Mormonism's crowning right, to more than one woman, while a woman can be sealed to only one man. Some point to that policy as proof that under LDS doctrine, polygamy will continue in heaven. Now that's factual, folks. So they still practice polygamy, spiritual polygamy. There's no doubt about it. There is no doubt about it. Sealed, married for eternity. What is bound on earth is bound in heaven. That's the whole Mormon temple, folks. Oh, we're out of time. Tomorrow's the 6th of November. What a special day, 6th, the first Tuesday in November. The day where it used to be where you could cast a legitimate vote. Folks, remember Joseph Stalin. It only matters who counts the votes. It's the reality. Hey, well, you have a great day today, ladies and gentlemen. We'll talk again tomorrow. Be well.